All right, so today let's take a deep dive into curtains versus blinds. I think it's a choice that a lot more people struggle with than they would care to admit. And, you sent me some pretty fascinating sources to a YouTube video
Mhm.
comparing the two from Decor Anthem, and then a blog post all about light and sleep from Dreams. And then finally, a blog post from like a shop owner's perspective on the whole thing from Cedar Global.
Yeah, that's a really great mix of sources to kind of get like a well-rounded perspective on the whole debate.
Right, exactly. And my guess is if you are listening to this right now, you're probably either like knee deep in a redecorating project, or maybe you've been tossing and turning just a little bit too much lately.
Yeah, or maybe even both.
Maybe even both, right?
Hmm.
So hopefully by the end of this, you'll be able to make a choice that's both stylish and, helps you sleep like a log.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating about this whole topic is that, people often get really stuck in this either or mindset, when really the magic often comes from combining both curtains and blinds.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so I'm definitely curious to get to that layering idea a little bit later on. But first, let's just break down the basics here. Like when we say curtains versus blinds, what are we even talking about?
Right, so Decor Anthem actually does a really great job of laying this out. They say curtains are all about fabric, that classic drape hanging from a rod. And blinds, on the other hand, tend to be made from more rigid materials.
Oh,
So that, like wood, metal, vinyl, you name it. And they're usually custom fit to your window, which is
yeah.
a nice touch.
Right, but then within those categories, there's like this whole world of options, right? It's not just like your basic white blinds and heavy velvet drapes
What's
anymore.
going on?
We're talking like roller blinds, Venetian blinds, Roman blinds.
Yeah, and then on the curtain side, you have everything from like airy linen to super luxurious silk.
It's a lot.
It really is,
Yeah, already just thinking about all those choices can feel a little overwhelming.
for sure. For sure. And you know what? Decor Anthem actually emphasizes this point even further by reminding us that we spend like 70% of our lives at home.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. So these decisions about our living spaces,
Uh,
even something that seems as simple as like window coverings, it really matters in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to be looking at them every day, right?
Exactly.
So, okay, we've got the basics down. Now let's get into the nitty gritty. Like, where do curtains really excel? And then where do blinds really shine? And both Decor Anthem and Cedar Global seem to have some pretty strong opinions about this. Like, which spaces are best suited for each option?
Yeah, for sure. And it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about like the practicalities of each one. So Decor Anthem, they really champion blinds for smaller rooms,
Yeah.
like where you want to maximize the space that you have, and also for like moisture prone areas like kitchens and bathrooms
Yeah.
where fabric might be a little bit more high maintenance,
Right.
or in situations where you have furniture sitting right up against the
Right.
windows.
You wouldn't want your beautiful curtains constantly getting crumpled behind the sofa.
Exactly, exactly. On the flip side though, Decor Anthem really argues that curtains, they truly come into their own in large open spaces. They add this sense of elegance and depth and grandeur that blinds often just struggle to replicate. They even use the example of a balcony with like layered curtains, which paints a pretty vivid picture.
Oh, absolutely. Can you imagine like those curtains billowing in the breeze? It does sound very romantic.
It does.
But what about like when it comes to controlling light and sound? Corantum seem to be really into sheer curtains for creating that soft, diffused light.
Yeah, sheer curtains, definitely a great option if you want to brighten a room without getting that harsh sunlight. But I do think it's important to acknowledge like the potential drawbacks. Because sheer curtains, beautiful as they are, they don't offer much in the way of privacy, especially at night.
That's a great point, and honestly, something I hadn't even really considered. So maybe sheer curtains are best for rooms where privacy isn't as much of a concern, like maybe a living room or a kitchen.
Exactly, exactly. And that's where blinds can actually be a great alternative because they offer a lot more precise control over light. With their various mechanisms,
Yeah.
you can have like complete blackout or you can create those cool stripes of light by tilting the slats just so.
I do love that about blinds, I have to admit. But what about the ambiance, though? Can blinds really create that same kind of soft, inviting atmosphere that Decor Anthem was talking about with sheer curtains?
That's a tough one. I think that's where personal preference really comes into play. Some people might find the clean lines and the functionality of blinds more appealing, whereas others might really crave that softness and texture that you get with curtains.
Right, right. It's all about the vibes.
It really is.
So it sounds like there's no clear winner when it comes to like light control. It really just depends on your individual needs and like aesthetic preferences. But what about sound? Because decor anthems seem to be suggesting that heavy curtains are better for sound dampening.
Yeah, that's generally true. Like thicker fabrics, like velvet or even heavy linen, they could absorb more sound waves,
Right.
which helps to create a quieter space. But Cedar Global actually makes a really interesting counterpoint by highlighting honeycomb blinds.
Honeycomb blinds, those are the ones with like the almost like cellular structure, right?
Yes, exactly. And those cells actually trap air, which helps to dampen sound. And Cedar Global even suggests that honeycomb blinds can be like a surprisingly effective and budget-friendly alternative to heavy curtains for people who are looking to minimize noise.
Interesting. So even when it comes to sound control, it seems like both curtains and blinds have something to offer.
Absolutely. And this is actually where it gets even more intriguing, because Dreams brings in a whole other layer to the conversation by delving into the science of light and sleep. Did you know that even small amounts of light can actually suppress melatonin production, which disrupts your sleep cycle?
Really? I had no idea it was that sensitive. I mean, I knew blackout curtains were a thing, but I always just assumed it was more about creating like a cozy cave-like atmosphere, you know?
Yeah, that too, of course.
Yeah.
But the science behind light and sleep is honestly quite fascinating. Dreams even cites studies in Antarctica, where people were struggling to sleep during periods of constant daylight. It really highlights how our bodies are naturally attuned to that cycle of day and night, and how light exposure plays a crucial role in regulating those sleep patterns.
Yeah, so even a little bit of light peeking through the window could be messing with our sleep.
It very well could be, yeah.
That's definitely something to think about, especially for those of us who are like light sleepers anyway. Man, maybe this whole curtains versus blinds debate is even more important than we initially thought.
I think it might be. It definitely adds another dimension to the decision-making process. And that's where understanding like the nuances of each option becomes really crucial. And now that we sort of explored, how curtains and blinds manage light and sound, I think it's time to get into like the more practical stuff, like insulation, maintenance, longevity. These are all pretty key factors to weigh, especially for like the DIYers and the budget-conscious folks out there.
Right, for sure. Okay, so hit me with the practicality rundown. What do we need to know?
All right. Well, Decor Anthem really emphasizes the ease of installing and removing curtains. Generally, you're just like hanging a rod and slipping the curtains on. So that makes them a really great option for renters who maybe don't want to drill into the walls, or anyone who just enjoys changing up their decor pretty frequently.
Makes sense. And cleaning curtains is usually pretty straightforward too, right? It's like a trip to the dry cleaners. Or maybe just a spin in the washing machine if you're lucky.
Yeah, exactly. Depends on the fabric. But Seder Global brings up a good point about blinds. Like, while they might require a little bit more effort up front, potentially even like professional installation, depending on the type, they often boast much greater durability and longevity.
So it's like they might be more of an investment up front, but they could end up saving you money and hassle down the line.
Exactly.
Okay, I see that. What about maintenance, though? I always feel like I'm dusting my blinds.
Yeah, dust buildup can definitely be a thing with blinds,
Mm-hmm.
especially those with like horizontal slats. But Cedar Global suggests that regular maintenance, like just a quick vacuum or a wipe down, can really keep them looking their best. And honestly, a little dusting every now and then, it's a small price to pay for the durability and the light control benefits they offer.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we've talked about curtains, we've talked about blinds, but then Seder Global throws out this intriguing idea of layering. Is that really a thing, like curtains and blinds together?
Oh, it absolutely is. And it's probably more common than you think. Layering opens up like a whole world of possibilities in terms of both like functionality and aesthetics. It allows you to maximize the benefits of both options while also mitigating some of their drawbacks.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example. Like, how does this layering magic actually work in practice?
Okay, so Seder Global gives a great example. Imagine you're someone who works night shifts. So you sleep during the day. So you need serious light blockage to get good quality sleep.
Right.
You could layer blackout curtains with fabric blinds. So the blackout curtains provide that like complete darkness for sleep. And then the fabric blinds can offer a softer, more decorative look. during the daytime hours when you don't need total blackout.
That's so smart. So you're getting the functionality of both, plus you're not stuck with just one look all the time.
Exactly, exactly.
That's awesome. So if someone is considering layering, how do they even approach that? Like, where do they start?
Well, Cedar Global recommends choosing your blinds first, and then selecting curtains that complement like the style and color of the blinds, which makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Because the blinds being closer to the window, they often have more of a functional role. So you want to make sure that you get those right first in terms of like light control and privacy needs.
So build that foundation with the blinds and then
Right.
add the flare with the curtains.
Exactly.
Got it. But doesn't layering like add an extra layer of cost? No pun intended.
It can.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be a budget buster. You can find really affordable options for both curtains and blinds, especially if you're willing to shop around.
Yeah.
And maybe even consider some DIY options. And remember, layering is all about maximizing those benefits. So if you're able to get better sleep, create a more functional space, and enhance your decor all at once, it might be worth that extra investment.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so I'm definitely starting to see the appeal of layering.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about like design, because Decor Anthem really emphasized like the versatility of curtains in terms of style.
They did. And I think they make a really good point. Like curtains can work with such a wide range of interior design styles, from traditional to modern and everything in between. They can add a touch of drama, they can soften hard edges, and they can just create this sense of like warmth and coziness.
Yeah.
Decor Anthem even talked about using like contrasting colors or patterns to add depth and personality to a room.
Right. Whereas Sitter Global kind of seemed to be suggesting that blinds lend themselves more to like a contemporary or minimalist aesthetic.
Yeah, that's true. Like blinds with their clean lines and often neutral colors, they can create a really sleek, streamlined look that works so well in modern spaces.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily say that blinds are limited to just one style. You can find blinds in a variety of materials and finishes, from natural wood to like metallics, that can complement a whole range of design aesthetics.
So it's not as simple as saying like curtains are for traditional spaces and blinds are for modern ones. There's definitely like overlap and room for creativity with both options.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And that's what makes this topic so interesting. It's not about finding the right answer. It's more about like understanding the nuances of each option and making a choice that aligns with like your individual needs and preferences.
Yeah, I love that. So with all this information like swirling around, what does it all mean for you, dear listener? What's the big takeaway here?
It means you have options,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. It means you can really tailor your choice to your specific space, your needs, and your budget. You can go for like the classic elegance of curtains, the modern simplicity of blinds, or even like embrace the creativity of layering.
You know, before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something from the Dreams article that really stuck with me. They were talking about like how the purpose of curtains has actually evolved over time. Like it used to be they were mainly used for like insulation and privacy, but now they play this like crucial role in light control for better sleep.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too.
Right, like for centuries people were using curtains mostly to stay warm
Yeah.
and to keep out prying eyes. But now knowing what we know about the impact of light on sleep, it kind of adds a whole new layer to the decision-making process. It's not just about aesthetics anymore. It's about like creating the sleep sanctuary.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if our ancestors, even without the scientific understanding, like maybe they intuitively recognized the connection between darkness and sleep.
Right, like heavy drapes blocking out the moonlight. Maybe they were onto something.
It's totally possible.
So as you're weighing your options, between curtains and blinds, or maybe even considering that layering approach, I think it's worth asking yourself, like, what kind of sleep environment am I actually trying to create here? What are my priorities in terms of light control and privacy and overall sleep quality?
And don't forget about the aesthetics, You're going to be looking at these things every single day. So choose something that brings you joy and complements the style of your space.
Right. It's got to be both functional and beautiful.
Exactly.
Okay, so to our listener out there, as you embark on this window covering journey, just remember there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It's about understanding your needs, considering the science, and embracing your personal style.
And don't be afraid to experiment. Maybe start with blinds for the functionality and then add sheer curtains for a touch of softness. Or, maybe you go all in on heavy drapes for that maximum drama and sound dampening.
Ooh, yeah.
The possibilities are pretty much endless.
They really are. All right, well, we would love to hear what you decide, so feel free to share your curtain or blind dilemmas, or your brilliant layering ideas, or any other design conundrums that you might be facing. Until next time, happy decorating, everyone.